Well, welcome back to the History Shelf BookTube. I am your host, Peg, for another edition of New History on the Horizon. My new series is growing in popularity. It is a showcase of books that are not published yet or will be very soon or have recently been published that I want to bring to your attention, all of you history lovers out there, so that you can either add to your TBR, check them out at the library, your bookstore, wherever you buy fine books, or check them out at the library, obviously. So anyway, New History on the Horizon, one of my favorite new series. We've got a lot of books. I might have to make a second video. I'm not sure how many we can fit in, but there's a lot of new stuff out. Couple of these are maybe a month or two old, and old, but they're still brand new. And I want to highlight them to you because with one of them, I wrote a review for it. And they sent me a finished copy, which I was so pleased because I read this on ebook for the purposes of a review. But if you are a fan of World War I history, which I am, currently reading Catastrophe 1914 with my friend Bill Rutenberg at the Rutenberg Library, another fellow booktuber. We are doing a buddy read of that and enjoying it. I highly recommend this book. It's a brand new take on Germany's role and its role and also how it lost World War I, and it goes into really fine detail on it. This is from Cambridge University Press. This is On a Knife Edge: How Germany Lost the First World War by Holger Afflerbach. This is an outstanding book. It really will make you understand Germany's role and its responsibilities and its accountability in many different ways. But let me go ahead and read to you just a quick glimpse of this. This is out right now, but it's brand new, and I think this is a book that the future historians will need to wrestle with. It says here, was the outcome of the First World War on a knife edge? In this major reassessment of German wartime politics and strategy, Holger Afflerbach argues that the outcome of the war was actually in the balance until relatively late in the war. Using new evidence from diaries, letters, and memoirs, he fundamentally revises our understanding of German strategy, from the decision to go to war and the failure of the Western offensive to the radicalization of Germany's war effort under Hindenburg and Ludendorff and the ultimate collapse of the Central Powers. He uncovers the struggles in wartime Germany between supporters of a compromise peace and hardliners who wanted to fight to the finish. He suggests that the German leadership was not nearly as committed to all-out conquest as previous accounts argue. Numerous German peace advances could have offered the opportunity to end the war before it dragged Europe into the abyss. Again, I wrote a review on this. Historians of World War I will have a lot to say in this book. I haven't had a chance to peruse some of my publications and periodicals that routinely review major works of history. I'd like to see what some of the critiques might be of this book. I thought it was very persuasive. But again, with any type of major historical event of massive significance, historians will take contradictory positions all the time. But in the meantime, I really highly recommend On a Knife Edge by Holger Afflerbach. Check this one out. It's Cambridge University Press, so it might be a little pricey. I was amazed that they sent me a finished copy. So thank you, Cambridge. This will go on my shelf along with my other World War I studies. And I think I'd like to come back to this at some point. But definitely ask at your library. See if they can get this on order for you. Okay. Next book. I had actually requested this a while ago. It took a while to get to me, but I finally did get it. It's a brand new history of Catholicism. And I think I have the pub sheet here. So this has been out for probably like a month or two. But this is Catholicism, A Global History from the French Revolution to Pope Francis by John T. McGreevy. This one is put out by Norton, W.W. Norton. So I was happy it finally found its way to me. But normally it would have been here a lot sooner, and I could have shown it to you when it first came out. When did it come out here? Yeah, it came out in September. But okay, we're going to squeeze this one in here. So what are we looking at here? There's a lot on this pub sheet. Let me tell you about this book from the dust jacket, because I think it might be quicker. The story of Roman Catholicism has never followed a singular path. In no time period has this been more true than over the last 2 centuries. Through powerful individual stories and sweeping bird's eye views, Catholicism provides a mesmerizing assessment of the Church's complex role in modern history. Both shaper and follower of the politics of nation-states, both conservator of hierarchies and evangelizer of egalitarianism. John T. McGreevy documents the hopes and ambitions of European missionaries, African Catholics fighting for political and religious independence, Latin American Catholics attracted to liberation theology, and Polish and South Korean Catholics demanding democratic governments. Characters include the Mexican revolutionary Servando Teresa de Mier, Daniel O'Connell, hero of Irish emancipation, Sister Josephine Bakita, a formerly enslaved Sudanese nun, Chinese statesman Mao Xiaobang, French philosopher and reformer Jacques Maritain, German Jewish philosopher and convert Edith Stein, there goes my camera, the anti-communist Polish Pope John Paul II, then we have Gustavo Gutierrez, Peruvian founder of liberation theology, and French-American patron of modern art Dominique de Menil. Throughout, McGreevy details currents of reform within the Church, as well as movements protective of traditional customs and beliefs. Finally, he addresses the challenges faced by Pope Francis as he struggles to unite the over 1 billion members of the world's largest religious community. So I'm really happy to have this. As you know, in the past many videos, I've been showing some massive theological hauls, which I do have another theology book haul and an update coming, just to show you some of the things I've been reading from previous acquisitions and arrivals. But yeah, I've been reading more about just like Catholic Church history, a little bit of theology as well. But so this is a major new work, and I wanted to be on top of this. So there is that. Okay, well, since we're right here, let me go ahead and I'll stick on this theme here. This was an interesting book. I had never heard of this publication society. This is called the Jewish Publication Society. Well, they had I think I got an email from the, I must be on someone's mailing list now. Uh-oh, more books for Peg, look out. But I saw that they had this book. I said, I'm interested. Could I take a look at this? And they were kind enough to send me a review copy of The Messiah Confrontation, Pharisees versus Sadducees, and the Death of Jesus by Israel Knoll. It's a slim little volume, but yeah, JPS, Jewish Publication Society. But this sounded so good. I love reading about all things the Bible, and I love how this really zeroes in on the Pharisees and Sadducees, and their differing belief systems and how that all kind of conflated. No one was more responsible than the other for the death of Jesus. I mean, and as a Christian, that was already going to happen. Anyway, let me read you the description here. Grounded in meticulous research, I'm sorry for the light, on the messianism debates in the Bible and during the Second Temple period, biblical scholar Israel Knoll argues that Jesus' trial was in reality a dramatic clash between two Jewish groups holding opposing ideologies of messianism and anti-messianism, with both ideologies running through the Bible. The Pharisees, who were the forefathers of the rabbinic sages, and most of the Jewish people had a conception of a Messiah similar to Jesus. Like the prophets and most psalmists, they expected the arrival of a godlike Messiah. However, the judges who sentenced Jesus to death were Sadducees, who were fighting with the Pharisees largely because they repudiated the Messiah idea. Thus, the trial of Jesus was not a clash between Jewish and what would become Christian doctrines, but a confrontation between two internal Jewish positions. expecting a Messiah or rejecting the Messiah idea, in which Jesus and the Pharisees were actually on the same side. Interesting. Knoll contends in this book that had the assigned judges been Pharisees rather than Sadducees, Jesus would not have been convicted and crucified. Okay, as a Christian, it was always going to happen. Anyway, the Pharisees' disagreement with Jesus was solely over whether Jesus was the Messiah. I think it was more than that. But historically for Jews, that was the major reason, but it was a lot more than that too. But historically for Jews, arguing about who was or wasn't the Messiah was not uncommon. So this book, The Messiah Confrontation, has far-reaching consequences for the relationship between Christians and Jews. So I think that's an important book. I'm really looking forward to digging into this. So this is a new book out from Jewish Publication Society. Now, this is not a new book, but they sent me it's been released in paperback. So I just thought I'd let you guys know it's out in paperback. It's from, is this Bloomsbury Publishing. They were kind enough to send me the paperback release of Frank Dictators' How to Be a Dictator, The Cult of Personality in the 20th Century. I think I've already read this. It looks very familiar, but it was out a couple years ago. I think I have an advanced review copy of this. I missed the hardcover completely, but they did send me the finished copy of this book, which says, "No dictator can rule through fear and violence alone. Naked power can be grabbed and held temporarily, but it never suffices in the long term. In the 20th century, as new technologies allowed leaders to place their image and voice directly into their citizens' homes, dictators achieved the illusion of popular approval without ever having to resort to elections." Using a breadth of archival research and his characteristic in-depth analysis, Frank Dictator examines the cults and propaganda surrounding 8 20th century dictators, from Hitler and Stalin to Mao Zedong and Kim Il-sung. These men learned from each other and from history to build their regimes and maintain their public images. They in turn have influenced leaders in the 21st century, including Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. How to Be a Dictator is a stunning portrait of authoritarianism and a map for exposing the lie dictators tell. The lies they tell, plural. So thank you, Bloomsbury, for the finished copy. Really appreciate that. Ooh, very intrigued by this book. As many of you know, my partner is Irish. She was born in Dublin. Emigrated here when she was a teenager. So I'm always looking to learn more about Irish history. This is a brand new book out from Basic Books. Out right now. I think it came out just a few weeks ago. This is Sean Connolly's On Every Tide, The Making and Remaking of the Irish World. Isn't this great? Nice big hefty book here. The cultural influence. I'm going to try to hold this up so you have something beautiful to look at besides my face reading. Daisy wants to go out. Of course she does, right when I'm doing my speech. The cultural influence of the Irish diaspora is evident all around us in the popularity of Riverdance, the ubiquity of the Irish pub and its requisite drink, Guinness, and the enthusiastic celebration of St. Patrick's Day each year. Yet when people think of the story of Irish immigration, they often think narrowly of the Great Famine of the 1840s, which caused many to flee Ireland for the United States. But the real history of the Irish diaspora is much longer, more complicated, and more global. One moment. Alrighty. When Daisy wants to get out, Daisy wants to get out. On Every Tide. Sean Connolly tells the epic story of Irish migration, showing how these immigrants became a force in world politics, religion, and culture. By the end of the 19th century, 2 out of every 5 people born on the island were living beyond its shores, the majority in the U.S., but also spread as far as Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Argentina, and South Africa. The 19th century world was transformed by industrialization, by Western colonization of vast new lands, and by ever more complex patterns of international trade. It was to this new world that the Irish emigrated, and which, equally important, opened up to receive them. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to skip. There's a lot written in this pub sheet. So I'll just kind of close it up from the jacket here. As the Irish built vibrant communities abroad, they gained wealth and created powerful networks that allowed them to build up power in grassroots politics, the labor movement, and religion. Rather than becoming a victimized underclass, the Irish leveraged their power, sometimes becoming oppressors themselves. Deeply researched and vividly told on every tide is essential reading for understanding how the Irish people shaped the modern world. And this is by Sean Connolly from Basic Books. Came out a few weeks ago. All right. Let's see. 2 books that are actually on the horizon. I got behind, guys, and then I was gone for a week.
Jesus, ready yet,
Oh, Martine is waiting for the next video, everybody.
I'm waiting in the green room.
She's waiting in the green room for our Marple wrap-up, so let me try to get through this video so we can film. Okay. So, upcoming book. Won't be out till next year, but I always like to show you and give you a heads up. Write it down. Keep it in your mind. This is Untold Power, The Fascinating Rise and Complex Legacy of First Lady Edith Wilson by Rebecca Boggs Roberts. This is going to be Viking. This is the Viking books. It says here, we have yet to elect our first female president, but over a century ago there was a woman acting as the leader of this nation. Though history has long downplayed her role, she effectively became the first woman president when her husband was incapacitated in 1919, before women could even vote nationwide. Her name was Edith Bowling Galt Wilson, and Untold Power is her story. Let's see here. There's just a lot to read, so I'm trying to figure out what. For the first time, a biographer takes an unflinching look at the woman whose ascent mirrors that of many powerful American women before and since, one full of the compromises and complicities women have undertaken throughout time in order to find security for themselves and make their mark on history. Edith Wilson was a shapeshifter who was obsessed with crafting her own reputation, at once deeply invested in exercising her own power, while also opposing women's suffrage. Edith? What the hell? Okay. Offering narrative verve and fresh eyes, Untold Power is a long overdue examination of one of American history's most influential and complicated women, as well as of the surprising and often absurd realities of American politics. So that is all about Edith Wilson. This is coming out in March, so we've got some time yet. Won't be reading this one right away, but it is on my list. All right, what else we got coming up? This is history mixed with literature. This is coming out in, give me a date. Why is this always so hard to find? February, on Valentine's Day. February 2023. Get ready for this. Fans of Edgar Allan Poe. A Mystery of Mysteries, The Death and Life of Edgar Allan Poe by Mark Dawidziak. I got it, Dawidziak. And this is St. Martin's Press. It's coming out in February. So what do we have here? It says here. Edgar Allan Poe's death in 1849 has been surrounded in enigmas for over a century and a half, which seems apt for the writer who originated the mystery and the horror genres. Discovered half-conscious in the streets of Baltimore, when he was supposed to be in Philadelphia, wearing another man's clothes and supposedly calling out for someone who has never been identified, Poe was to end his life with friends offering wildly conflicting accounts of what had happened, and enemies publishing relentless smears of him. In A Mystery of Mysteries, author Mark Dawidziak investigates the facts of Poe's strange passing and revisits the moments of his storm-tossed life that led to that fateful day in Baltimore. Along the way, Dawidziak dispels several long-standing myths about one of America's greatest and most original writers, creating a portrait of Poe that is as surprising as it is supported in fact. Poe, according to the author, had a definite morbid side, but he was also athletic, charming, and often comic. Known for his tales of doomed mansions and terrifying apparitions from the grave, he also penned countless works of comedy, adventure, and literary criticism. He had problems with alcohol, but had long periods of his adult life, sometimes spanning years, where he didn't drink at all. And despite enduring many tragedies in his life, he didn't seem to be self-destructive. So in this book, WWII also considers the theories about Poe's death as he investigates the facts surrounding it. He surveys the many suspected causes: sickness, a relapse, a kidnapping, a vendetta, mercury poisoning, and many others, speaking with historians, literary scholars, forensic pathologists, and others to come to a sound explanation of how Poe died. All right. Ultimately, according to WWII, the strange case of Poe's death and even the subsequent character assassinations from his critics, calling him a madman, only increased Poe's fame. In addition to being one of America's great literary talents, Poe has taken on a role in the public imagination as a barely sane, doomed artist. An inaccurate portrait, but one that adds to his considerable intrigue. So this is coming out in February, guys. Looks to be pretty darn good. I'm looking forward to digging into that as well. Love a little Poe. Poe is outstanding. Oh, yes. So here's another book that is, I think this is an advanced copy, or is this? Yes, this is also coming out in February. I've just got my commission for this book. What a serendipitous moment. They sent me an advanced reader copy, the publisher did. Reached out and asked if I would like one, and I said yes. And then, boom, just got commissioned to write a review for it from Washington Independent Review of Books. So I will be probably start reading this sometime in January. But it's a big book, but I'm looking forward to it. It's from Echo Books. This is The Diary Keepers. World War II in the Netherlands, as written by the people who lived through it. Now, I just finished reading a book for review, and I wrote a review of it the other day, focused on World War II in the Netherlands, particularly Holland, and Corrie ten Boom. There was a new biography that's coming out that I've read. It's called The Watchmaker's Daughter. Anyway, so I'm wondering if they're going to cull from her and her family's diaries as well for this. I mean, you can't talk about the Netherlands in World War II and not talk about Corrie ten Boom, right? So anyway, I will be reading this. It's a pretty big book. Let me just give you a little synopsis here. Based on select writings from an exceptional Amsterdam archive containing more than 2,000 Dutch diaries from World War II, The Diary Keepers illuminates a part of history we haven't seen in quite this way before. Nina Segal, an accomplished journalist and novelist, weaves together excerpts from the daily journals of collaborators, resistors, and the persecuted. A Dutch Nazi police detective, a Jewish journalist imprisoned at Westerbork transit camp, a grocery store owner who saved dozens of lives, into a braided non-fictional narrative of the Nazi occupation and the Dutch Holocaust as individuals experienced it day by day. Siegel provides the context, both historical and personal, while she tries to make sense of her own relationship to this past. As a second-generation survivor born and raised in New York, she attempts to understand what it means for her mother and maternal grandparents to live through the war in Europe in those times. When Siegel moved to Amsterdam, those questions came up again, as did another horrifying one. Why did 75% of the Dutch Jewish community perish in the war, while in other Western European countries the proportions were significantly lower? How did this square with the narratives of Dutch resistance she had heard so much about, like Corrie ten Boom? Searching in singular, the thing with Corrie ten Boom is she was caught. She was sent to the concentration camp at Ravensbrück, her and her sister. Her family really, they walked that walk. Extremely inspiring, but also harrowing. Anyway, Searching in Singular, The Diary Keepers takes us into the lives of 7 diary writers and follows their pasts into the present through interviews with those who preserved and inherited those diaries. Along the way, Siegel investigates the nature of memory and how the traumatic past is rewritten again and again. Trying to get the glare off the book for you. But this looks outstanding. And again, I'll be covering this. I'll be writing a review for this early next year. Okay. Gosh, I got so many new books here. I don't know what to show you all. Okay, another new book coming on the horizon. Another February release. This is from Algonquin Books. This is called I Am Still With You, A Reckoning with Silence, Inheritance, and History by Emmanuel Iduma. So what is this book about? I shall tell you. A deeply moving lyrical journey through the author's homeland of Nigeria in search of the truth about his disappeared uncle and the history of a war that shaped him, his family, and a nation. In inimitable rhythmic prose, the author and winner of the prestigious Wyndham Campbell Prize, Emmanuel Iduma, tells the story of his return to Nigeria, where he grew up after years of living in New York. He travels home with an elusive mission to learn the fate of his uncle Emmanuel, his namesake, who disappeared in the Nigerian Civil War in the late 1960s. A conflict that left so many families broken, the war remains at the margins of the history books, almost taboo to discuss. To find answers, Iduma stopped in city after city throughout the former Biafra region, reconnecting with relatives dear and distant to probe their memories, prowling university libraries to furtively photocopy illicit books, and visiting half-abandoned monuments along the highway. Perhaps he realized if he could understand how his father grieved the loss of a brother in the war, he might learn how to grieve his late father in turn. Equal parts memoir, national history, and political reckoning, I Am Still With You is a deeply personal story of collective loss and making peace with the unknowable. I love memoirs, and I love reading about Africa and the different countries in Africa and just the different wars and traumas that have happened there, as well as the promise of Africa, which can't recommend it enough. Deepo Faloyan's brand new book, Africa is Not a Country. I highly recommend that book as well. But this is coming out in February, and I will be reading this. Algonquin Books. All right. Well, I got a finished copy of this. We've seen it on this channel before. I had an advanced review copy. I'm kind of glad I've got the finished copy. Good folks at St. Martin's Press sent me the finished copy, which has just a wealth of color photographs that the advanced copy did not have. So I'm very pleased to have Egypt's Golden Couple, When Akhenaten and Nefertiti Were Gods on Earth by John Darnell and Colleen Darnell. This is the finished hard copy, and it's all about Egypt's Golden Couple. I think I've read before about them. Yeah, so let's see here. I'll read it to you one more time, or at least part of it. November 2022 marks the centennial of the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun. And although King Tut is a household name, his 9-year rule pales in comparison to the revolutionary reign of his parents. Akhenaten and Nefertiti became gods on earth by transforming Egyptian solar worship, making innovations in art and urban design, and merging religion and politics in ways never attempted before. Combining fascinating scholarship, the suspense of detective work, and adventurous thrills, Egypt's Golden Couple is a journey through excavations, museums, hieroglyphic texts, and stunning artifacts. From clue to clue, renowned Egyptologists John and Colleen Darnell reconstruct an otherwise untold story of the magnificent reign of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. So, if you're a big fan of Egyptian history, archaeology, ancient Egypt, obviously, check out Egypt's Golden Couple, brand new from St. Martin's Press by the Darnells. Okay, guys, I still have a few more books, so I think I'm going to go ahead and I will have to make a second video, which will then be number 4. We'll have, this is new history on the horizon, number 3. We're going to have a number 4 coming up real soon, so please do come back for that. That'll be coming up hopefully this weekend, because I do have more packages downstairs that just came in, which means more new history on the horizon. So I think I can supplement the 8 books I have still sitting here to show you. In the meantime, let me know what you thought of these books. I'm always happy to hear what intrigues you, what lights up your eyes when it comes to history. And in the meantime, keep on the lookout for the wrap-up video of Murder at the Vicarage, starring yours truly and her partner. Partner in crime? Maybe. You'll see. Until next time, BookTube. Ciao.